Mr. Karadzic, could you please stand?
Radovan Karadzic had spent 497 days in court, defending himself as a man more sinned against than sinning, listening to 248 witnesses and millions of words of testimony. Today, the most high-profile war crimes trial since Nuremberg reached its conclusion.
Having heard all of the evidence presented by the prosecution,
At first, Karadzic was found not guilty on one count of genocide. But then,
guilty of the following counts. Count 2, genocide. Count 3, persecution, a crime against humanity. Count 4,
guilty on 10 out of 11 counts, a litany of cruelty.
murder, a crime against humanity.
Here he was today, inscrutable but guilty of atrocities committed in a war that cost over 100,000 lives, created millions of refugees, and became the darkest chapter of post-war European history.
Count 11, hostage taking, or violation of the laws or customs of war.
And this was him a quarter of a century ago. The man with the signature silver mane was a trained psychiatrist, a doctor who should have been a patient. Karadzic kept reinventing himself at a terrible cost to others. His first incarnation was as doctor turned politician turned poet. He wrote blood-curdling ballads about the suffering and the revenge of the Bosnian Serbs, but then turned his poetry into policy. He was the architect of what became known as ethnic cleansing, the dirty and bloody business of forcibly removing Bosnian Muslims and Croats to create enclaves that were exclusively Serb. Slaughter in the service of maps. Methods included the bombing of civilians, first in the capital Sarajevo, and then in dozens of other places like Bratunac in eastern Bosnia, once a melting pot of different religions, and once a home to Sead Makanovic, a factory worker in Holland now. A 12-year-old boy then. Today he huddled with his family and friends near the courthouse to listen to the verdict.
I was a kid. I was 12 years. I went to school normally with all the other religions, nationalities. Everything was normal till that day.
Did you know anyone who was killed in your family or friends, neighbors?
There are three brothers from my mother's side killed. One nephew, 17 years, Srebrenica.
Your nephew was killed in Srebrenica?
Yeah. 17 years. Found years later. But you have families, you have mothers. They still don't know nothing about their sons. Some mothers lost 5, 6 sons. Whole families, whole world is just different. It's difficult to understand.
It was Karadzic who set up concentration camps like the notorious Omarska, a disused mine that turned out to be much more than a prison. It was these images that first alerted the world to the horrors of a war on European soil, half a century after these things were never supposed to happen again. The most notorious crime Karadzic was found guilty of today was the slaughter of 8,000 boys and men in the forests around Srebrenica. Before the mass shooting, the men and women were separated from each other. Then every male over the age of 16 was bussed to his death. During his defense, Karadzic tried to blame the killing on his fellow defendant, General Ratko Mladic. But the ploy didn't work. Karadzic was found guilty, and Mladic is still awaiting his verdict in The Hague. The pictures of some of the victims outside the courthouse today are a heartrending reminder. This has been the most important war crimes tribunal since World War II. And at a time when injustice and impunity seem to be rife in so many parts of the world, especially in Syria, this building behind me establishes a very important, poignant principle. That the wheels of justice, though not inevitable, can turn. And however slowly they turn, there will be a verdict. That is what Radovan Karadzic learned today, and that is what so many other illustrious former leaders, now awaiting trial, will learn tomorrow.
There must be justice. We must believe in justice. We can't just take a rifle and take revenge. Whole world is in fire. What's next?
There was nothing inevitable about the trial or the verdict of Radovan Karadzic. For more than 10 years he became a fugitive from justice in Belgrade, working in disguise as a faith healer, a part-time monk and sex therapist in the Serbian capital. Today he began playing his final role as Europe's most high-profile war crimes convict. He flashed a smile of defiance and once again proclaimed his innocence. But facing 40 years behind bars, it seems unlikely that his final role in life will be anything other than inmate